Welcome to another episode of Beyond Data Management Podcast, powered by HS GovTech. I'm your host, Cameron Garrison. One of the many things that is a delight in working here at HS GovTech, my day job, and with environmental health departments, is the number of just amazing people at HS with a very long and deep environmental health background and experience set. I think it's one of the things that the company's just done so right is not just people who know from what they've been told about environmental health, but people that know because they've walked more than a mile in those shoes. And so we're going to meet one of those amazing people here today and have a conversation. And that's Kristen Geary, formerly an environmental health specialist from the Jackson County, Missouri Environmental Health Department. And as of a couple of years ago now, a senior project manager at HS GovTech. And so she's trying to definitely pay it forward. She's been through implementations, as we'll talk about, and every day she works to make sure that, based on her experience in an actual department, agencies coming on board with new systems get a great experience, and in some cases maybe better than the one that she got in a couple of instances before. So we'll welcome in virtually from Missouri, Kristen Geary. Great to see you.
Hi, Cameron. Good to see you too.
And thanks for taking time out. I know things are really busy right now and heading into the summer. There's a lot of agencies going live, and you guys have a really full dance card. So thanks for letting me steal a bit of time from you today.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start. I hopefully covered all the main points there arc-wise in the introduction, but let's just start with your background. One of the things, and it's kind of binary, right? Either listeners are going to be like, we're tired of you asking that question to everybody, or they're going to like it. And we get a lot of comments, actually, that one of the things a lot of the listeners and viewers enjoy a lot is just hearing the real stories of how the people on here came to environmental health, both find it and then ultimately how they, internalize it as a passion and a long-term career trajectory. So let's start with you. We know the high points. You're from the Jackson County, Missouri department before you came here, and now you're in private sector with HS. But how did you, if we go all the way back to the beginning, how did you find your way to environmental health and the life that you've followed the path on since?
Well, it was an accident. I did not know that I wanted to be in environmental health. I didn't know how much I was going to love it. I worked for the county as an administrative assistant, and we had one of our longtime inspectors retire. And I wasn't even in in the environmental health department, but I was in an adjacent department. And so when their administrative assistant would go on vacation or take days off, I would kind of fill in a little bit. I didn't do very much, but I did a little bit, whatever I could to help out. And when we had that inspector retire, it was in December, and I happened to be sitting at a table with my future boss, and she was talking to somebody else at the table and said, what am I going to do? I can't, we've had this position open, and I can't get any qualified applicants. And they started joking around about pulling, this person or that person out of another department. And I kind of quietly said, well, if you're going to start pulling people out of departments, you should take me. And she turned around and looked at me and she said, would you be interested? And I said, yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And from there, it just kind of took me about 3 months to get my position filled and trained. And then she took me on, and I just flew from there. I loved it. I didn't realize how much.
That's amazing. So was that Deb C's by chance?
It was.
So shout out to her. Known her a long time.
Yeah.
So what was so they threw you right into the inspector role, like that was who you filled in for. So how long between when you floated that and Deb looked at you and it's like, okay, before you were actually in the field doing the full job?
Well, it takes quite a while to get through training. We followed the FDA standards of 25 inspections where we go and follow another inspector, and then they follow us on 25 as also. But before you start most of that, you have to get through all the online training. And the FDA trainings are very rigorous. They're very detailed. I yeah, I don't even.
You didn't like it
There's
very
a
much.
lot to
You
be
didn't like
said.
it,
I
did
don't
you?
know. Well, I liked most of it because I love learning. But when it came to the science, which is really a big deal because of the potential for people getting sick. And so that was probably the hardest part for me is getting through the trainings where they talk about all the different various illnesses and you have to know what illness has what symptoms. And for somebody who had no background, they all sounded alike.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got the stomach flu, you probably got a foodborne illness.
Yeah, you got, and so you got through it though.
I did. I did. I got through that and had a fantastic experience.
What was the most that stood out to you, maybe the one thing that was the most different when you actually went out there for the first time and started doing inspections from what you imagined or how you saw it going in your head before you had ever been in the field, like when you were in training or when you accepted the job?
Um, One of the things I really struggled with is I'm a people pleaser. And
Mhm.
so in that position, your job
It's
is
tough.
to give people negative feedback. You have to tell them what they're doing wrong. And so I wasn't for sure how I was going to manage that. That was my biggest concern coming into it is how am I going to come in and start telling people how they're doing things wrong. But I don't know. I quickly found that there is a way to talk to people and helping them and partnering with them and educating them. That most of the time, if you go into it with an good communication and respect for what they do and understanding, it works itself out and you feel your way through it and you might stumble a couple of times at the beginning and then you just pick it up and you just take off with it. You fly. It was good.
Was it really hard the first couple times, maybe when you had to mark some big things on an inspection? The people pleaser thing's interesting to me because I've been more or less like kind of in a people pleaser as well. And it is really hard when that's just kind of how you were born to
Uh-huh.
tell somebody something really hard or something that they're not going to like to hear.
Yeah.
Was that difficult the first couple times? And then how did you find, or what mechanisms did you find or use that help you realize this is not a thing? And because clearly you steamrolled from there and have flown high. But talk about that initially. And then did you learn ways that maybe other people could benefit from of how you kind of put that to the back of your mind to get through the job?
Well, most of the time it is if you go through it with an educational standpoint of I want to help you get better. I want to work with you. I'm not here just to point fingers and you don't see me anymore until it's time to come in and write you up for some more violations. So I always tried to keep open communication. I always tried to encourage them that if they had questions, they could call me. I had a work cell and I always gave my cell phone number out. And I said, if you need something, you let me know. If it's after hours, I may not answer, but you leave me a message or text me because if it's something I can handle immediately, or if it's an emergency and you don't know how to handle something, I'm available. I will work after hours. I will be there. I don't want to be that inspector who points fingers, walks away, and then you don't hear from me again.
Wow.
So that is really the whole time I worked for the department. That's pretty much how I handled it for all of my clients. And really, I only had a few times where somebody would call me after hours.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say, did they take you up on that much, or how was
we
that received? Both when you told them, and then did they ever take you up on it?
we had a grocery store call us on Father's Day, and they had lost power. They were a little small mom and pop grocery store. So this had actually happened to them a couple of different times, but then where they lost power and they're like, oh my gosh, we don't know what to do. And they didn't have any really standards or policies in place on how they were going to protect their food and what they were going to do. And so I left Father's Day meal with my family, and my boss and I both went and helped them check every single bit of refrigerated and frozen food in that grocery store.
Really?
And oh yeah, and so and then of course they didn't have dumpsters set up, and they were trying to do the right thing, so they called for help, and we went and helped them. I actually had to take a package of like lunch meat out of a little that we had everything tied off. We had caution tape, but they were still trying to operate by selling like their shelf stable foods. And we had a little, I don't know, 80-year-old man come through, and he reached around the tape and grabbed a thing of lunch meat.
Oh, no.
Oh, it was awful. I had to go try to take it away from him. He's like, I don't care. And I'm like, no, the temperature, it's been out of temperature for hours. We can't, we were trying to clear all their coolers and all their racks.
But he still just wanted that meat either way.
He just wanted that lunch meat, and he didn't care whether it was safe. And I had to take, it was terrible. I had to take it away from him. I couldn't let them sell it.
Was he upset? I mean, it sounds like
he was okay, but I just, yeah. I mean,
so Father's Day, that is amazing commitment to the community to do that. And for people that are listening, so would you recommend, just as a standard course to an inspector, part of the relationship building is making the offer that you did when you would come into a facility for the first time?
Well, for me, it worked for me. It helped me create a relationship and build trust, that I was going to be there for them, and I would try to help them get better and not just come in and regulate. And, I mean, I hear a lot of stories from, managers who had worked in elsewhere or who dealt with other inspectors who had come in from other jurisdictions, and, they all have stories. And there's always two sides to each story. But overall, I felt like for the most part, you have to have a way to build a relationship if you want to gain trust. And in the end, when you can gain trust, you can gain compliance. So I would definitely recommend you find a way to build that relationship. But still, there's a fine line. You can't cross the line. You can't become their best friend, because then you can't regulate them.
And if people have a habit of getting too close in situations like that, then that's a risk. Like the people pleaser has a risk of not being able to tell it like it is. There's a risk too if you get attached to people socially quickly, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I had one manager who I actually did build a really good relationship with, and when it was time, because we moved around to different jurisdictions every year or two to help keep us from creating those relationships, or getting used to be in one place. And so you tend to not, like, you're always looking at one thing, and you maybe don't necessarily.
Yeah, the old flipping of the territories, right?
Yes, it's a really good plan. But I had one manager, and by the time I finished with, I was ready to move on, because he got to the point where he was begging me not to give him violations. And I'm like, I can't do that. I have to do my job. He had water dripping into the ends, like it was leaking from his hand washing sink in between the walls. And it was tearing out the wall. He's like, they'll fix it. I'm going to get it fixed. Can you just not give me a violation? I want to see 100%. I'm like, no, I can't do that. He had a great place, but I can't do that. I still have to do my job.
Yeah. So we were talking with Chirag recently on here, and he was talking about, and it actually came up with Caitlin Gappa a few months ago, that some people take it even to the next step, and like, whether it's wink, nod, you can bring your family here for a meal, or they offer you money. in your experience, do you think folks in your department experience some of that where people would try to think they could butter them up that way?
Yeah, I mean, there are some cultures who you're offensive if you refuse them.
Hmm.
So, there was one place that I inspected and they were always trying to feed me and I always said no. And, our policy was you can taste it. If you want to taste it, you can take a taste of something. But you don't, no food, you don't take freebies. You don't, if they offer you a drink or something, you can take a drink if it's a hot day and you're sweaty and or not necessarily sweaty, but you can take a drink, but you don't take stuff. And for me, I just said no
Nothing at
all the
all.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just didn't want to cross over that. So, but I can say that there were a couple of times that I was chased out the door by a really sweet guy with a bag full of food and a bag full of colas, and he walked it out to my car and he put it in my car. Um,
Wow.
so there was a usually homeless people on the corner.
So you
And
donate
so
it.
I stopped and I donated it because I just couldn't in good conscience. I didn't want to throw away good food and I
Yeah.
didn't want to, be disrespectful of what he was providing, but I also was not going to,
Yeah. That's a
I don't
tough
know.
one.
It is
Because
a
like if
hard
you put it in
one.
the back of your car, now you're gonna have to be really aggressive and like take it out and put it back in the parking lot. Or that's tough.
It is. So I mean, I don't want to be offensive. So that was my solution. I don't know if it was right or wrong, but that's how I handled it. And I was thanked very much. And I suggested that if they ever feel like going to eat, that these people are the places that provided their meal.
Yeah. So actually, that's the question is you're not allowed to eat while you're there on an inspection. But if you weren't there in official capacity, if you would eat it, that says something in and of itself about the facility, right?
Yeah, yeah. I've had a couple times where they refused to give me a bill. And so then guess what? I took my family to this little Italian restaurant and our bill was probably 50 or 60. I had little children at that time. It was probably 50 or $60 and he refused to give me a bill. And so I gave the waitress a $60 tip. So,
Oh, there you go. Boy, she had a
and
really good day.
she did. I think she maybe was his daughter. So, I'm sure it worked out okay. But that was just how I felt comfortable. But then I never went back there and had dinner again because I didn't feel like I didn't want anybody giving me free meals.
Yeah, like that
So,
that gets awkward, doesn't it? Because then after they've done it once, if you come back, it's awkward for them too. They're probably wondering, well, does she expect this every time?
no, and he was like, "Nobody will know. Nobody will know. Don't worry about it. I'll just pretend to give you this receipt. Here, we're
Famous
just gonna
last
pretend."
words.
And I'm like, "I can't do that."
Oh man.
I mean, you hear stories. I've had waiters and wait staff say, "Oh, we used to work at this restaurant," and the inspector would come in and sit down, and they would eat lunch, and then they'd go do the inspection. So
Wow.
there were places that I did go eat, but not on inspection day. I avoided, like, if I was going to be inspecting that day at all, I did not eat at that location. So,
So speaking of where you would eat, what's your opinion on food trucks? So I won't put
uh,
you in an unfair spot and ask you about a chain, but food trucks actually, sometimes are a bit of an afterthought. Like even when somebody's doing a data management system, mobile is and mobile, and they throw it in as an aside. But
uh-huh.
it's got its own obviously risk sets, but it's gotten so big that it's got its own unique set of challenges, doesn't it?
It does. It does because food trucks are notorious for being really, really hot. And even when they have an air conditioner on them, they run in the summer. It's 100 degrees outside. It's 120 degrees in the truck. The people who are cooking are sweating, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen sweat just dripping off of people, and very close to food surfaces, cooking surfaces, utensils. hot holding units or like open containers of food that they're working with. It's not good. And so, you can write them up and you do your best to try to, yeah.
Yeah.
You try to educate and you try to really make sure you draw that to their attention, that they need to figure out a plan and they need to make sure they keep their air conditioning vents cleaned and clear so that they're not blowing dust everywhere. And I had one food operator that was working in a sleeveless top, and they had a lot of underarm hair. And
Oh, come on.
yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all because you're reaching up and trying to cook food, and yeah, that's a problem.
Essentially got a wet rag under there.
Yeah, and then cooling units. A lot of times they don't work really well when it's 100 degrees out. They're not gonna. They can only remove so much heat. And so as the food workers are getting in and out of coolers, they're warming up the food that's in the cooler. And so I spent a lot of time trying to teach them, train them. They need multiple coolers. They need to keep one cooler with all their extra food, and they need to keep their coolers are getting in and out of. They need to keep those like with minimal amount of food in them, so that they're going through it quickly. They should be timing, date stamping, or putting times when they pull things out of their big cooler that is holding temp. Potentially using some dried ice if they're having a hard time managing their temperatures, so that whatever they can do to keep that food at the right temperature, because food trucks have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
So not every food truck. There are a lot of them that do a fantastic job.
Yeah. Like we had Matt from Best Food Truck on. They build like the Taj Mahals of them, and they have the 3 compartment sinks, and they do have, they're reliable. But that's if I've been, we travel a lot in working with so many departments, and I've been on the street in cities where it's literally like it looked like, may not have been, but it looked like a little filing cabinet that you would get at Office Depot, wrapped in duct tape with then a makeshift griddle attached to the top. and so there's a lot of that out there too. Jackson County is in a major metro area. You were part of the greater Kansas City metro. How big of a problem was unpermitted vending when in and around there?
Unpermitted vending is a big issue everywhere. People selling things on the internet, selling things out of the trunk of their car. We had, there was some kind of a festival going on at a local park, and they had vendors who had gotten permits. And so we were there inspecting them and encountered people that were showing up with food coming from uninspected sources, prepared at home or prepared in different places, pulling stuff out of their trunks. And they just, I don't know. It was not.
Do you confiscate the food in that situation? Was it a civil fine and you confiscate, or what do you do?
Still, if they're actually serving it, then yes, we can have them what we call destroy or denature the food, so that it cannot be sold. When it's in their car and they get in their car and they drive off, then you become the police and you just have to watch for them to come back. So
it reminds me of a story from years ago. An inspector had where they had, I guess there was three or 4 dozen, doesn't matter, I can't remember the exact number, but a large quantity of eggs that were out of date, but also had been sitting out at room temperature on the counter for an indeterminate amount of time. And when they started pressing the operator about the story on these eggs, I guess the story wasn't going to be a good one, because the operator grabbed them, ran, put them into the trunk of his car, and drove off. That's exactly how the inspection report read too. Like he fled the scene with the eggs.
Yeah.
And you're not
People,
deputized to pursue, right? And high speed pursuit would probably be silly, obviously, in that situation.
yeah.
But like people will do crazy things over something as simple as some eggs or some honey buns that they were going to illegally retail at a fair.
Yeah, people do some crazy things.
They really do. So you are like so many things that interesting that we could get into. One of them is you are obviously been in private and also with a department, but you've also been through software implementation and
Right.
more than one time in the
Uh-huh.
course of your career. And I think that's just interesting, especially the more than one time part, because there are, believe it or not, there's still agencies, actually a good many in Missouri, that are still largely on paper. So there are
Mhm.
some that haven't done it for the first time yet. And some younger folks at agencies maybe just haven't been through a migration between systems. So we'll unpack this sort of step by step, but top level, how important did you, in your opinion, and from your lived experience, is a good, logical, usable data management system for a modern health department?
It's very important, and making sure that you have a system that's user friendly um, is probably top notch, because as health inspectors, we're not always software experts. We're not IT experts. We just need to be able to use the data, and we need to be able to input it in a manner that we're not spending more time writing the report than we are doing the inspections. Um,
Yes.
so the first time we went through the first software um, that we went through, conversion that we went through, I came in at the end of it. And so they were just getting ready to go live when I came into the health department, and I had a fairly good handle on basic databases. Definitely not an expert, but I kind of understood the framework and how they kind of all connected tables. That particular software, it did a lot of things, but it was hard to manipulate. And unless you were an IT expert, like I struggled with it. And I struggled with training, because I quickly became the trainer for our department, with help from others. But I did a lot of training.
Yeah,
And
you
it
were the go-to.
real
You ended up being the go-to person, and I know that 100% because you ended up being the go-to person when your agency implemented HS Cloud Suite as well.
Yes. So there were a couple of us that worked on that first one, because I was still new and learning my job on how to be a health inspector. But we found that one of the things that I found as I came into that is the project manager we were dealing with was speaking a different language, or maybe using a different dictionary. So he would use the word NOV, and to us it meant one thing. And it took me probably 3 months to figure out he was talking about something completely
Oh,
different.
wow. So he wasn't talking. So wait a
Um,
minute, I'm guessing he wasn't talking about notice of violation.
Oh yeah, he was.
He
But what
was. What
what
did
a
it mean
notice
there?
to him was completely different than what our notice actually was. What we were
Gotcha.
doing with it just, they weren't one to one. They didn't match up. So
And
we
that's
were
a big
using the
thing,
same
right?
words.
Because you have local
Huge.
departments, they might do the same thing at a macro level, but how they
Oh
get
yeah.
there very, very different.
Oh yeah. No, I'm currently working with a client who is the first thing I've done with every client I've gone into is said, if I'm using terminology or if something I'm saying is not making sense, we need to make sure we're using the same dictionary. Make sure my understanding is the same as yours. And so we were using the word follow up. And for the agencies that a lot of them use follow up, they mean a reinspection.
Hmm.
Well, that is not at all how they use follow up. Their follow up is a free visit that's just kind of a random drop in style
Oh,
visit.
that's different.
It is. And so, we were able to figure that out, I think, in the first meeting. Um,
Oh,
and then
wow.
and then in the second meeting, I said the word follow up, and they called me out and they were like, wait a second, follow up. No, we don't charge for a follow up. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, okay, we're using the word reinspection and a follow up
That's
for, like,
different. Yeah.
yes, what we called that a field visit. we would just stop in. We would call it a field visit.
Yeah.
And so that I think has really helped me in communicating with the agencies that I'm working with currently, of
That
just
makes
making
so
sure
much
that,
sense.
open that communication and just tell me if I am not making sense. It could be that I just don't understand. We're having different understandings.
And what's so interesting is that,
So,
like, there's a lot that you illustrate there, and it's also humility because you have all of the bona fides, but you're humble enough to realize that there's so many variances that you're asking in that
yeah,
first meeting, right? Like that
yeah,
in and of itself, though, shows so much knowledge of what you're doing. Because you're right, so many PMs just barge in and just assume that we're all using. It stuck out to me. You said using a different dictionary.
yeah.
That is very demoralizing for an agency, isn't it? When you're like, I can't communicate with this person.
And that's exactly what happened with us with that first one. We could not communicate. We could not get on the same page. And I'm fairly certain that our director, Deb Sees, I'm fairly certain she went to their management and said, "Can you give us somebody different? Can you do something, because this is not working very well?" And I don't think that I don't think they listened, and I think that um, from my perspective, I felt like they were putting off the opinion that we were the problem, that we
Hmm.
were the ones that were just not understanding. We were just being difficult. So, needless to say, we were very unhappy with
Which is
that
condescending,
particular one.
right? That's a condescending attitude.
I mean, that's the way it felt. I can't say everybody at that company
Yeah.
was hard to deal with, but just, it only takes one or two difficult people to make it really a miserable project. So
That's so
yeah.
true. You can have a great team. So many of a team is behind the scenes in an implementation, though, right?
Oh
So if the
yeah.
person on stage kind of screws up, yeah, it really soils the work of everybody else. That's actually scary, but interesting at the same time.
I mean, none
Um,
of us are perfect. We can all make a mistake,
oh
but
yeah,
own up to it, and then how can I fix it?
yeah, no,
Um,
exactly. So you mentioned too that, and I think it's really true. It doesn't get openly talked about enough. The folks in EH are not in EH because they have a passion for software, for computers, for data. They're in
yeah.
it for all the reasons that every single week are talked about here on this podcast.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, you shouldn't be trying to turn them into data people, but there is a secondary element, though, right? I think you found it to be true yourself that there is a reason that they should at least to some degree care about how it gets implemented and about decisions about the data structure and things because it's going to really impact them downstream. So
Yes.
how obviously if you have a project manager who speaks in like what could be Greek, then you're sunk. But what do you say to folks in an agency that don't want to get sucked in, but they do want to be successful with their implementation? What do you kind of highlight to them about why it matters to pay attention? Don't just like browse the emails and not respond or click, looks good to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why should they care and tune in, and kind of what's the price of not?
So if you don't test, if you don't walk through it step by step with your project manager, um, and even even if you hire a project manager to walk through, like your team and our team, and we each have their own project manager, your project manager or somebody, whoever's in charge of the project from your jurisdiction side, has to have a really good handle of the process that you want to go through. And you have to really understand, because if you don't, then after your implementation is completed, you can find yourself in a pickle because you'll be missing steps, you'll be missing data, you'll forget that you have a data point that you were collecting in a spreadsheet somewhere outside of your legacy software. that you forgot to put into, you forgot to tell us about it. So walking through it step by step, testing it through from the beginning will really make it go so much smoother. If you wait until 2 weeks before you're ready to go live and all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, we're missing things, it can really push your projects off. If you push your projects off and you're getting ready, you are hoping to quit paying for your old software so that you can just go live and just a smooth transition and get started, get up and go, and then you find out you can't. It can create problems in that respect as well.
Yeah, definitely can. You, you're, I can see, of course, I knew not just from this conversation why your clients enjoy working with you so much, but what you are really, you've put it all together in this now new phase of your career in life. What, sort of a preamble to, wrapping with that, what attracted you or made you think about leaving? Because a lot of people are hesitant. The passion for right?
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of people will hang on, are very hesitant to try a slightly different, flavor or path. What appealed or attracted you to it here? And now that you've been at it for a while, have you found that rewarding, being able to put all the real world things, both from a software implementation, but also just how a department runs, into practice, helping a bunch of departments at a time? What's that experience been like, and what brought you to this place?
So so the fact that we had really bad experience to begin with, and then coming over to health space or HS GovTech, um, that there was such black and white difference. And so as we were finishing up our project, I started talking to my project manager. I'm like, man, I think I would really like that. I think I would really love to help people I saw what happens when you have a bad experience. Um, and I'm a people pleaser. So for me, it was a really just an opportunity to to kind of take what I learned through that implementation from the client side and then turn it around and start trying to help ease other clients in through the same process.
It's really
Um,
great.
it's been fantastic.
Yeah, you're having fun, aren't you?
I am, and I get to use a little bit of creativity sometimes because sometimes they'll throw some little crazy scenarios at me. I'm like, how can we make that work?
Yeah, the little differences, that the devil's in the details in implementing
Yes,
a system, right? Like the little
yes,
workflow challenges and differences.
yeah, and finding the easiest way to do it in a manner that doesn't create a lot of extra work on everybody's part, a lot of extra data entry, or just trying to find ways to make it make sense for the client. And so far, I feel like
It's
I've
gone
done
well. No,
okay
it's
with
gone
that.
really well. I'm sure there's probably some people out there is like, I never thought about that, but that's interesting. What, maybe, and the question obviously would be, well, how do you make that jump? What do you think now that you've been in both worlds,
Uh-huh.
but still all focused on serving and
Yes.
professionals and the public? What are some of the prerequisites that you think make a good project manager, for someone who's in and, is thinking about their career down the road, and maybe they really do have a technical bent in software? What would you tell them for someone who's like, maybe down the road, I want to follow a path like you did?
You really need to be able to keep track of details. You need to be able to manage multiple things like branches. It's like branches of a tree. You got all these different things going on at one time, and you have to be able to kind of keep them all in their little pocket, but see the big picture of how it's all going to come together and all work together. And then the other thing is communicating with people. You need to be able to communicate the importance of what we're trying to do as we begin the rollout or as we begin the process, being able to communicate to them how the questions that I'm asking are going to fit together to make their system make sense for them. Um, And so I feel like if you do not have very good communication skills, um, and also patience, because, well, like right now is the busy season. They are crazy busy. Every one of my jurisdictions that I'm working with, they are, dealing with summer festivals and all the food vendors and the non-permitted food vendors. There's just a lot going on right now. And so the amount of time they have for this implementation and to answer my questions, they're being very patient with me. So yeah, just understanding where they're at as well is helpful.
And knowing the basic rhythms of this is busy season, this is happening here now, and it's those details that really matter. So in closing, I understand, and she will be able to hear you here because Christina is in the control room. I understand that you might have had some inspiration. So coming up at NEHA, July 14th through 17th in Phoenix, we're doing Family Feud Environmental Health Edition. I think you have an idea for a question on that. Maybe throw it out for the audience in the world here.
Absolutely. So, what food safety tip do health inspectors make sure they follow at home? So, we all go out and we inspect and we know all the food safety requirements.
That's a good
What's
one.
the number one food safety tip that you make sure you always follow at home?
That is a really, really good one because, I think a lot of people would like to actually know that just from a interest perspective. What do inspectors actually do at home in their own kitchens, right? You could probably invert that one too, right? And do a second one, which is what's the one that you're least likely to follow at home? And do like a best and worst?
Yep, I think that would be good too.
All right, so since you tabled the question, I feel it's fair to ask you, put you on the spot. Let's do both. Which one do you routinely ignore at home, and which one do you always do the most at home?
Okay, so the one that I tend to ignore at home, and really, I'm hearing that this is not all jurisdictions are following this right now, but I'm a stickler for it in a retail is bare hand contact. So that would probably be the one that
But that makes sense, right? They're your hands.
Yep. They're your hands when I'm feeding my family.
Yeah.
So I'm a little more careful if I have guests. But yeah, when I'm feeding my family and my home and I'm cooking here, bare hand contact is probably one. The one that I'm probably the most stickler for is making sure that I know what's in my refrigerator and I'm not eating food that's 2 weeks old. So food doesn't, I won't prepare or serve or eat a food that has been in my refrigerator for more than 7 days.
And that's a hard battle, isn't it? Because stuff just ends up accumulating. And maybe I'm just the weird slob, but stuff accumulates in the refrigerator and time flies.
Yeah, it does. And sometimes I can't tell you that the refrigerator always gets cleaned out every single week. But I do know what's in there, and I do know when. I don't date mark things, but I know when I made them. And if it's been more than 5 days, I either eat it, like tomorrow it'll be my lunch, or I'm feeding it to the chickens.
You are more disciplined than I am. So on that question is awesome. And Tina actually poked her head into the studio here came out from the control room and is like, yeah, that's good. So I tell you what, let's throw it out there. Whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, so many of them, can't list them all. But if you want, you can put information in the comments, but you can also email us if you would like to register in an answer on this that you just heard here on this episode, and you can provide your answer. The question, what is the food safety rule, regulation, tip, however you want to think of it, that you are the most, we'll do it two versions, most likely to always follow at home, and then the one that you're most likely not to follow at home, beyond at hscloudsuite.com, beyond at hscloudsuite.com, and don't miss Environmental Health Family Feud from the NEHA Exhibit Hall on the evening of July 14th. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Kristen, so glad that you're here. And I know your clients are as well. And thanks for stopping and just, introducing yourself to everybody and talking about your story. And you are going to be appearing in some stuff I'm really excited about, episodes that is basically a day in the life of an environmental health inspector, where you all are going to share, tell, and comment on real life, actual stories that will just blow people's minds. People who aren't in environmental health, at least. So I'm really looking forward to doing that with you as well. But we're glad you're here, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks all of you all in the audience for joining us again. And please don't forget, if you're enjoying these podcasts, and there's been, based on the viewership and the feedback we're getting, it seems a lot of people are. Please, if you don't mind, just under the video on whatever audio or whatever platform you're on, just like and subscribe. It really does help them get more exposure, specifically to more people like you. In this case, that's about environmental health. So for all of us here at the Beyond Data Management Studios, including and thanks to David Stiles in the control room, as well as Tina Miller, I'm Cameron Garrison. Look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.